Hello, hello. Happy Sunday. Now, something different. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not live. However, I am live in the comments watching this at the same time that you are, if you're tuning in when the premiere dropped, or however the wording is. I'm not sure of the lingo. I thought I'd try this because I consistently have logistical issues with sound and internet reception and all that sort of thing. So I thought, let's try doing this so that I can still comment and I can still chat to you live. If you want to ask me questions, I am here. And I will confirm that as I'm speaking, as I'm listening. And we'll see how this works. So it's always good to try new things, right? It's what I always say at the end. Try everything, try anything. So this week, we are going to talk about, we've got another slideshow. I'm not going to edit. So this is going to be just the same as me rambling on a Sunday night, usually if it was live. And I have gone down a bit of a rabbit hole of all kinds of things when it comes to lipedema. And like most people, I very much like compartmentalizing things. We have lipedema, we have hypermobility, we have MCAS, we have this, we have that. I've got thyroid disease, right? What if they kind of are all linked, right? That's where I'm going at the moment. And I've got another video coming out because I'm just doing this, like, I'm just following the rabbit hole. But this week I want to talk about hypermobility because I've been talking about MCAS for the last few weeks and going, oh, hang on a sec. I didn't even think that I had this. I was just thinking I had lipedema on its own, right? And now it's like, oh, I very clearly have most of the symptoms of mast cell activation syndrome. So that's MCAS. You can watch those videos if you haven't yet. So now I've started having a dig around in the hypermobility space. And I didn't really think this was me, to be honest, because I'm not double jointed. I've always been a bit bendier than usual, I guess. But I don't think I could do splits as a child or anything, like I didn't have those sorts of things going on. So I just kind of dismissed it. But the more I dug into it, the more I was like, yep, this is quite likely. And there's a bit of a viral reel going around at the moment. At least it seems to keep popping up for me from different people, which has made me go, oh, I do that. I've always done that. Like all these things I'm ticking. So I'm going to share my screen like I normally would. Here we go. And all right. So hypermobility signs and lipedema. I had no idea. And I'm going to say some of you won't, you'll be a bit, oh my goodness, like I was, right? Okay. If you're new here, I'm Kylie. I have all these things going on. You can pause it and read it. And just so you know, there is hope. There is always hope moving forward. This was me at the time of filming about 3 years ago. So things can change. You can also go from dyeing your hair every 3 or 4 weeks to letting yourself go grey. So but you can stop that and check that out at any time. Disclaimer, I am actually a naturopath and clinical nutritionist and herbalist, but everything that I talk about here is pretty much my experience. I share what I learned for myself in case it helps somebody else. That's all this channel's about, right? So I love research. I love checking out things that I need to know about myself. And by sharing it with you, it helps me learn more. So, because they say you truly get something when you can explain it to somebody else. So that's why I do this. It's very selfish, right? But it is what it is. Okay. So, that's my disclaimer, right? So, if you want to change anything, if you think something's a good idea based on what I tell you or what I've tried, go and see your people, go and see the people that know your full medical history and know all the things about you already. Okay. Be a grown up. All right. Okay. Have you seen these reels? Have you? They are, it just one got suggested to me and I watched it and I went, oh, and then all of a sudden, like I got heaps. And so now on Instagram, I've gone in and put in hypermobile signs and symptoms or something. And there's everybody's doing them, right? So I'm not a big Instagram reel kind of person. That's not in my wheelhouse. This is more my style. So I thought I'll do a video on it. And these are weird signs of hypermobility, things that we do every day that you just do not think is connected to this issue, syndrome, whatever you want to call it, right? So, and there are things like clumsiness and bumping into things and sitting weirdly, and like you just go, huh. 44% of women with lipedema are hypermobile, and it's caused by loose ligaments. And if you're of a certain age, after menopause, your ligaments loosen even more, which is why we should be doing weightlifting, bearing weights and things like that to help strengthen the muscles and keep everything sort of a little bit tighter. It's probably why we should also maybe, keep up with compressions to keep things in a structure. And, I'm going to say, although I haven't seen anything around hypermobility and compressions, I'm going to say it's got to help, right? That's just my theory. Okay, so hypermobility, it's also a connective tissue disorder with very similar crossover issues as lipedema. So I guess that's why you sort of go, oh, it's just the bendy joints that is hypermobile. But bear with me, check it out. All right, so bumping into things, door frames, people, obvious things that are like in your way and you still seem to bump into them. And that's because we have a compromised proprioception, so internal compass or internal GPS, right? Of where we are. And we think we've skirted it and we haven't. So it's not like we don't see the thing. We think we've got around it and we haven't. Okay. So hands up if you've done this, thinking, well, that's weird. And then, of course, with lipedema, it freaking hurts when you bump into things, especially if it's the side of the wall or the door frame or whatever, right? So there's a double whammy there. Okay, number two, leaning on the sink. Okay, so, or bench tops. Particularly when I was carrying an extra 60 kilos to what I am now, I would lean on the bench or against the sink consistently, always. And I would always have a big mess in the on the front of my shirts. I would always, that's where I would stain things. That's where I ended up with holes in my shirts. And I just thought that was normal that everybody leaned against the sink, or it's because I was overweight. So my tummy was always leaning against the bench tops or whatever I was doing. Um, but it's not. It's our nervous system gaining a sense of stability, a sense of, oh, this is our boundary. Because of that lack of proprioception, we sort of kind of don't feel like, we feel a bit like lost blowing in the wind, right? A bag in the wind. Whereas when we lean up against the bench while we're doing something, especially for an extended period of time, cooking dinner, that kind of thing, it feels safer to our nervous system. It gives us that sense of grounding, which we don't actually have. Who knew, right? I certainly didn't. Let me know if you do this as well and how many shirts you've had to throw out because of it, because I've thrown out a million. All right, number three, sleeping like T-Rex. This is weird, but it made sense, right? Held up tight, like arms like this, right? One leg up generally. And again, apparently the folding of the arms, and I do this, I'm on my side with my leg up. That's a really common way for me to sleep. So when I saw it, I was like, oh my Lord, I do that too. And it again, it gives us a feeling of stability, and it calms our nervous system. So we can kind of feel our joints, whereas when we're just loose and relaxed, it feels like, again, I'm guessing, a good analogy is a bag blowing in the wind, like it just doesn't feel right or doesn't feel safe to us. So doing this and curling right up in the fetal position, I'm, one leg up, one leg down, common. And on sleeping, and it's not in this list, but there's also like you're always moving around trying to get comfortable. And that's whether you're sleeping or whether you're in a chair, you're always moving around, you're always crossing your legs and all that. Actually, that one comes up. But yeah, that moving around thing in bed. And I know I do that all the time. I'm always trying to, until I drop off. Yeah, I'm moving around trying to get that, I guess, that safety feeling. So interesting, right? Do you do this? Who's got T-Rex arms? Like, tell me. Oh, hang on, back we go. Sleeping like T-Rex. Weight on one hip. And I've got a million photos like this where because that's how I often stand. If you're waiting for something or you're doing something or you're talking on the phone, I have always put my weight on one hip. And this again is you're locking in. It's that sense of muscle engagement when you haven't got it by just standing straight. We don't have that muscle engagement to stand straight. And so it gives us that sense of support, like as if we had the bench tops that we were talking about. It's that similar kind of thing. So who's done that? I do that all the time. I still do that. And I'm going to have to watch myself now that I know this. Okay, sensory issues. And a lot of these cross over with lipedema, but because they're both connective tissue disorders, right? So hypermobility and lipedema are both connective tissue disorders. So it kind of crosses over. But anyway, sensory issues. So connective tissue affecting the fascia and the nerves. So then things feel yucky on you. You just don't want people touching you, or certain clothes, tags on the back of your neck, that kind of thing. Sensory issues. So I don't feel like I generally have sensory issues, although I have cut the odd tag off my shirt. If it sticks out too much, it's like, no, tag's got to go, but that's not on every shirt. So I'm not saying it's across the board, but yeah, I won't wear things that annoy me, put it that way. All right, clenching. So this includes jaw clenching, shoulder clenching, pelvic floor clenching, glute clenching. Again, all of this is about finding that sense of stability, because everything feels loose and like you could collapse, like it's not going to hold you up. I don't know if anyone's ever had meniscal tears where your knee just gives way on you, like you could, and this was the start of me understanding that I needed a double knee replacement. And I just one day I was just walking, and the next step my knee just gave way, and I was just, that's weird. And like after another slow few steps, it righted itself, and then this continued until I had time. I was studying naturopathy at the time, so I I didn't schedule in the meniscal tear repair surgery until the next lot of school holidays. So by the end of that, I was on crutches because I was consistently, my meniscus was giving away every time I tried to step on it. And I'm going to say that that's kind of what this feels like, but to a lesser extent. Our whole body feels like it's not quite supported. And so we clench everything to feel it and to feel like, oh, yep, we're supporting ourselves. We're grounded. We're here, being in our body. I study human design, and I've been studying it for over 7 years. And in my human design part of my life, if you don't know what human design is, look it up. It's a mix of astrologies and chakras and all kinds of woo-woo things. But part of my life's journey is to be in my body. And that's not lost on me when I look at all these different things about not feeling like you're in your body with hypermobility. There's a direct correlation to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm always doing things because I don't feel like I'm in my body. And it's even weirder now that I've lost so much weight. There's some things that have been made worse, and some things, like I don't lean on the bench anymore. Um, yeah, so very strange situation. That's why I had to share it, because I was like, wow, this is weird. All right. Pretzel sitting. Now, this wasn't me. So this was the classic thing that I thought, oh, this is what hypermobile people do. I was never able to, I crossed my legs, but pretzel sitting is when, like you can sit with your legs, like the W position where your legs are splayed out and you're sort of, almost in a squat position, but on the floor. You can, you sit cross-legged on a chair. I don't think I was ever able to do that as a child. So it's like, it's all kinds of positions, but here's what I do find now that I've lost weight and I can cross my legs, because for 30 years I couldn't cross my knees. Um, I'm always like, so at this chair here, I'm always like pulling this out and crossing my legs and coming back in, and then I'll come back out. And I've got a little stool under this seat because the chair's too high, but it needs to be this high for the camera, all that stuff. But I'm always, if I'm not filming, I'm always moving around, recrossing my legs, doing this, right? And it's all a sign of us trying to find grounding and feeling safe, feeling like we can feel that we're supported. So it actually feels really abnormal for us to sit in a chair straight up, normally, like other people, or on a couch or that sort of thing. We have to move around, and we have to sit sideways, or we have to put our leg on the couch, or, there's always this movement that comes with hypermobility, which I had no idea about. Okay. All right. Number 8, hitchhiker's thumb. Okay. We've got friends, and I know one of them's watching, so she always does. So hello. And we always take photos before we go on trips, and message them to each other, with usually with our passports, like, oh, we're going, and usually we're giving the finger. But there are some photos where Ollie and I will give the thumbs up, and I always look at my thumb in the picture going, there's something wrong with my thumb. It doesn't look like it, and I'm always trying to like make it look straight because it looks weird. So then I do this research and go, oh, I've got the hitchhiker's thumb. Right. So hitchhiker's thumb, and also, and this is part of how they test you when they see if you want a diagnosis for hypermobility. It's, can your fingers go to more than 90 degrees? So you can see this is sort of like a 90-degree thing rather than a straight up and down thing. Same with your fingers. Can you, push them down? And there's certain, like on the bench top, and there's all different kinds of things like that. And there's also one where if you put your hand on the bench top and you can move your fingers up more than, I think it said an inch, which that's more than an inch, um, then that's hypermobility. I must ask my husband if he can do that, like, because that's like, wow, really? I wasn't sure. Oh, and can you put your palms on yeah, your palms of your hands, sorry, I'm looking in the mirror here, on your shoulders, right? Because I can just, but apparently that's something you're not normally able to do. But there's all kinds of different things like this, all right? So everything, all of this falls under, oh, and also, so I've got my hands, like, I don't know if I can turn around so I can show you. Can you see? So it's like, can you, like prayer hands, but behind your back? So I kind of just can. So again, it was all these sorts of double jointed and splits, and the sitting like a pretzel. They're the things in my head were the reason, or the oh, you're hypermobile if you can do these things. So I didn't know about all these other things, right? So that was just really interesting to me. So I hope it's been of interest to you. Okay, so number 9, joint issues. So, and I've had the meniscal tears, I've had bursitis in my joints, I've had all kinds of joint issues. I had very weak ankles when I was younger. I kept damaging my ankles. So this is where also your joints crack and make popping noises all the time. So they creaking joints. Um, you may have easy, your joints fall out of the sockets, dislocated things, twists, sprains, all of that sort of thing. You fall over easily. I fall over very easily. I used to think I was just clumsy. And this is all because loose ligaments are not holding everything together the way they should. So for us, from what I understand, is that I'm going to have to get very serious. I've got a trip coming up, but I'm going to have to get very serious when I get back about starting weights and getting in the condo gym, and actually, because the more that we can weight lift and strengthen our muscles, then that kind of acts on behalf of the ligaments of holding things together. So, and my physio back in Australia did actually tell me this when I was talking to him on the last visit. He goes, oh, after menopause, and if you've got hypermobility, you do need to, weight train. It's like you've got no choice, sort of thing, if you want to like not fall over and all the things. So it's like, yeah, damn. I'm not a fan, I've got to say. All right. Stretchy skin. And this you think is a lipedema thing, but it's also like it's because it's loose connective tissue. Um, so things, stretchy skin, right? And admittedly, I'm just trying to see where my camera is so that I can see I'm showing you the right thing. Um, and admittedly, I have got very loose skin because this is from weight loss as well. But I had that before. I had that before where you could sort of pick up your skin and as opposed to it staying like, because the connective tissue is not holding it there. It's like it's loose. So can you do that? Tell me, regardless of your weight, can you do that? That's what I want to know. Okay, and it stretches further than usual. Okay, oops, wrong way. All right, number 11. You have ADHD. This is a new one, and I'm going to say I've already put the video up by the time this one comes out. Um, and that is lipedema and ADHD. It's like 77% of women with lipedema have ADHD. And I'm just going down this rabbit hole. So it's like there's so, as I said, mast cell activation syndrome, ADHD, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, yeah, all of these, they're all like combined. And it's like, wow, this is like, yeah, blowing my mind for sure. Okay, so it has a high correlation in Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobility, and lipedema. Over half of people with ADHD have hypermobility. So this isn't lipedema, this is hypermobility, right? So they did some studies on this, and that's what they found. More than 50% of people that have ADHD have hypermobility. So they can't find an exact cause yet. But they're looking into the lack of collagen in the brain and a connection with interleukin 6. It's an inflammatory mediator because this is all inflammation driven. And with the ADHD, because I've been looking into it going, no, I don't have that. I did 4 years of college when I was 40. I can, I'm organized, I hold down work, I do this, that, and the other. There are many different kinds of ADHD. There's one doctor, and I can't remember his name, but he's a little bit controversial, but he talks about 7 different kinds depending on where the issue is in the brain as to how it plays out with ADHD. And there's many high functioning women that hold down careers and, SEO, CEO positions and these sorts of things, run $1 million businesses that have ADHD. So it's like, oh, so here's another rabbit hole. And I'm going to go there because I am. It's like, wow. Because I don't want to look at things and go, oh, I don't want to be tarred with that brush. I don't want to be like known as the ADHD girl or anything like that. I'm just like, no, you know what? If it's part of my history, if it's part of my overall medical presentation, I want to know. I want to know how it's all connected. I want to know what I'm dealing with. And potentially, you know, I'm not saying I'd get diagnosed with this or go for a diagnosis because I'm a bit different when it comes to diagnosis of any kind. I'm like, I don't really need to have it on my rap sheet when it comes to insurance companies and stuff like that. So, so the insurance company that insures us worldwide, they just need to watch my YouTube video and ascertain what my history is. But that's why if I look at something and go, you know what, tick, 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 I'm just going to look at, okay, what can I do? So unless there's a medical thing that I can achieve by getting a diagnosis, I'm not interested in diagnosis. So um, unless with ADHD, I thought I could, my life could change immeasurably by going on medication. And at this point, I've achieved a lot. So I'm like, do I need to? So there's that sort of line of I will find out about it and I will dig deeper in it and I will add it into these videos because I need to know about it. But yeah, when it comes to, unless I'm not functioning, unless I'm like, I can't complete things or, whatever I'm doing is hampering goals and, desires and wishes and that sort of thing, then to me, I don't need a diagnosis. I can just look at what it says the symptoms are and what potentially are the problems and go, yeah, that's me. So, but then what food things can I bring into play, with, and I'll put this in the ADHD video is, the elimination diet that you can go on that has remarkably improved ADHD symptoms across the board. So, yeah, I would be more likely to do something like that and just go, oh, you know what? I tick a lot of those boxes. And apparently there's a lot of online um, quizzes you can do with a, and I know from memory, because our child was diagnosed very young, that they only go off quizzes and questionnaires, and there's no actual, they can't do a blood test and that kind of thing. Um, so you can do that for yourself and go, oh, you know what? Odds are I fit into this category, whether I like it or not. So maybe I need to be cutting out these foods and see how life changes for me. So anyway, that was my little, that was what? Like, what's this got to do with anything? Oh, and ADHD is genetic. So where did it come from for my child? I'm gonna say me. I'm not too shy or to put my hand up and go, okay, that's what's going on there. All right. Air hunger. Here's a weird one. And I always thought this was a thyroid issue, right? So this is why we shouldn't be compartmentalizing things. We need to be looking at it as a whole. So that's the feeling that you can't quite get enough breath in. You can't quite breathe deep enough. And then because you're focusing on it, you start to have a little bit of a panic, and then you kind of forget how to breathe in rhythm. And like there's this ongoing thing. Because I've this has happened to me many times over the years, where I've felt like, why can't you know, why can't I get enough breath? Is there something wrong and all this sort of thing? And it's just the laxity in the connective tissue everywhere in your body because we've got connective tissue everywhere. So it's in the lungs, the diaphragm, the neck, the shoulders, the way we hold ourselves. Because, when we want a deep breath, we tend to put our shoulders back and give ourselves more space. And a lot of the time we're, sitting like this and we haven't got that structure to hold ourselves in place, which is what sometimes causes these issues, right? So, yeah, that was a really interesting one, that one, air hunger. All right. Diagnosis. All right. To get a diagnosis, if you want one, just because I don't get diagnoses of these things doesn't mean to say you can't. You might like that idea, and you might be in a situation where with a diagnosis you can get access to physios at a cheaper rate or covered by your health insurance. So there's lots of reasons to have a diagnosis, but they're the only reasons I would chase a diagnosis is if, oh, by getting diagnosed, I have access to XYZ to help me. That would be the only reason. But in Australia, I can only go off in Australia because I spoke to my physio about it before we left Australia. Um, and they do the diagnosis. So they do a physical exam, and I'm going to say it's like, testing how far back your fingers can go. And if they can go 90 degrees like that, then that's but they do a symptom review of, I'm going to say they've got a big, long, bigger symptom of like these, a medical history to make sure they're ruling out other conditions. See, again, there's so many crossovers here that it's quite possible that, oh, no, no, all of those are to do with lipedema, especially if you don't have the cross-legged and the pretzels and you can do the splits as a kid, that kind of thing. So how easy would it be to pile all of these into lipedema, but not hypermobility? So that's where I find it fascinating having these compartments of diseases. They will also use something called a Baton score, and I'm sure you could probably look up online. I haven't yet on what this looks like. And if you have more than 5 out of 9, bear with me, I'll explain that in a second, you're likely positive. If you are over 50, then it's anything from 4 out of 9. That's why there's 4 to 5 out of 9 on the slideshow. Um, so then you are likely positive for being hypermobile. So that would be, worth looking at. I don't know if we have access to Baton score measuring sheet ticky off thing online. Probably you can get just about everything now. So that might be worth looking into. Um, so that's if you want diagnosis. There you go. And as I always say, try everything because you never know until you try, right? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, here we are. All right. So again, the whole concept of this is I'm diving into all the different things that are going on in my body. And as I'm ready for the next piece of information, something else is showing up in a whole new name, like mast cell activation syndrome. Oh, now we've got, hypermobility. And oh, next week it'll probably be, no, we're also doing ADHD at the moment because I'm like, that's quite possible. But I need to know a little bit more about that. POTS, possibly. I can often get, you know, lowered blood pressure. So maybe so I'm going to be looking into all of that and seeing how it all connects, because that's what we've got to look at. What's the upstream thing that's causing all these downstream things, right? So I read something last week that MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, which is, our reactions and our histamine release to all sorts of different physical stimuli, is actually a downstream problem from something called CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So that's the upstream issue. But is the further upstream issue just a problem with inflammation and we're not processing it correctly? And so therefore we have all these cascading effects that all kind of look the same, but they all have their own separate little names and agendas and no doubt medications, and because that's how big pharma makes money, and that's how our hospital system works. And you know what? As people, that's how we work too, right? We sort of go, like we like to be able to put things in little boxes, and I do, because it seems organized. It feels like that's not too much to figure out if it's kind of attached to all these other things. So that's how we work for safety and for, just keeping things into perspective. But I like to look at big picture as well. So it's funny that I haven't looked at the big picture of these sorts of things up until now. And now it's like, oh, all of a sudden, since I've added a couple of things, I'm like, oh, let's look at the really big picture now and see what's the thing? And I'm going to say it's inflammation, right? It's inflammation. It's this interleukin 6. So any way that we can reduce our inflammation and stop the cascade effects downstream, it doesn't matter if we've got all these other little things. It doesn't matter if we've got hypermobility, or it doesn't matter if we've got ADHD, because I didn't understand the ADHD link, but it's inflammation in the brain, right? So it's like, okay, cool. All right. So I'm not afraid to face these things, and I hope you're along for the ride and you're not afraid to face them as well with me. And I hope you share with me what you know. Have you got any of these issues? Am I alone in this? Please tell me I'm not alone in thinking I might be ADHD, even though I'm functioning, I'm organized. There's definite, thought processes there. But that's another video. All right. So let's stick to hypermobility for this one. But tell me where you're at with that. And tell me how you feel about having it pre-filmed and me being in the comments during the premiere. Because I kind of like the idea of being able to film it, put it up, and knowing that I'm not going to have issues with, sound, internet, all the things. All right, that's it for me. And I will see you during the week for a long form video, and next Sunday night for another slideshow. Have a great week.